Hi there once again, and welcome to another Expresso mechanic tutorial, and this is the third and final part in the series on building a Kinetic Sphere Exchanger. In our first two episodes we were focused upon building what we see here. So we've got the slide assembly and we've got the two pneumatic rams which make the spheres travel through the wireforms here. In this particular tutorial we'll be building these wireforms and then using dynamics to make the spheres travel through them. That will be our sole focus here. That's what we're going to be about in this tutorial. So without further ado, let's see if we can make this happen. We'll start by getting a hold of our spline pen tool, and we'll think about where we're going to be placing our wireframes. Now let's have a look. If we go into our front view, so F4, and we zoom out a little bit, just so that we can see where we are. I don't want to do that yet. Just zoom out a little bit. If I play the animation and just stop around there, and then we can move forward a frame at a time. Okay, so we can see that this ram is going to extend to this point. So we want our wireforms to be just above, or starting just above there. Now, if we, with our spline pen, which we've got selected here, if we just click on there to start our first point and then switch to our top view, we can see where that point actually resides. And at the moment it's not in the correct place, so we need to get our select tool, and we'll also switch on snapping, and just to be sure we've got the grid point snap on, which is what we want. So we'll select this point and we can drag it to the center of our ram, and let's just make sure that it is in the center, and it is. We can see that it is, so that's positioned correctly. Moving on from here then, let's switch to our front view once again, and then we can think about working with the spline pen and placing some more points. And I think the first point should be placed around here. That gives us the correct height for our first point. If I hit F3 and switch to my right hand view, let's see where we're going from here. Well, I think our third point can be placed somewhere around here. That looks good. And our fourth somewhere around here, 2 squares over. We can then think about the next point, and we can place that probably somewhere around here. In our top view again, so F2, let's just see what we're doing there and make sure that we know where we are. Now I think we'll just get our selection tool and move this point to somewhere around here, so just level with the edge of the wheel here. That will do fine for that particular point for now. I mean, this will be adjusted. We're going to certainly have to tweak this and make some fine-tuning in order to get this to function as we want it to. Just hit the space bar just to get back to our tool there, hit escape, and then we can start again with another point. Come down to around here somewhere, another point roughly here, here, and just somewhere around here to finish off. Now let's hit escape and we'll see where we are in our right hand view. Now all of these points are down on the floor at the moment. We don't want them there. So the first thing we can do is reach for our points. Just get out of our tool there. Go back to spline and select this point. And we can move this one up to somewhere around here. And then start moving our other points relative to it. So somewhere there. Somewhere around there. What could be there actually for now. Move this one up to somewhere here, and then grab a hold of both of these two, move them up till they're somewhere here. We've got to leave it something like that will be okay. I think this one can probably move to somewhere there so that we could just continue that little bit of a slope there. And then let's have a look, see where we are in our 3D view. Okay, so we've got a basic shape. We've got a basic shape in. We definitely do need to do some fine tuning because it's not absolutely perfect yet. There's a few things that we need to do. In our top view, let's just see where we are, and then we can think about doing some work with our tangents. What we'll probably do for a start is make this particular tangent soft. That gives us a starting point. Let's just adjust here, just bring that out, and we can see straight away that we've got an issue with it. We can just bring that in a little bit maybe so that it's away from there, and we can see that this is not working properly, so we've got to do some adjustment on that. We'll just take that in a little bit, I think, just to help us on our way. Somewhere there maybe. Let's just make this one soft as well, so we just see where we are with that. We can bring that probably down here, and certainly that can be straightened. Just bring that down a little bit. This tangent here I want to leave hard, and I want the same here, so I'm going to just work with this and just bring it in, I think, a little bit, and just make some adjustment here. Probably move that to there, just to get this facing in the right direction just a little bit more. We can also bring this over if we need to, so that we get that kind of shape. Just take that round there. It's just about making this nice and smooth as possible. So that's lining up reasonably well with that. We probably need to move this over a little bit so that it's just about there, and then we can switch to our right hand view and see where we are here. Now that's obviously not in the correct place. That needs to be somewhere there where it was before. Again, here we can probably drop this down so that we get things lining up more there. This can be soft and this can be soft, so let's make those, where are we, there we go, soft. Okay, that's looking nice. We will move this one. We can just adjust this out so that it's somewhere there. That looks good. I like the curve we're getting there. That's looking very nice. Let's have a look in our 3D view. Yeah, I mean, they're not too bad. That's still not quite right, is it? So let's go into our top view, so F2, and just move this over so that it's somewhere there. 3D view again. Looking reasonably good. I mean, that's not too bad at all. I mean, it can be adjusted out. We can move this again, I think, a little bit as well. So top view, so F2, and just move that until it's in about that position. And yeah, then they're pretty close now, aren't they? That's a good shape. That's looking like a really good shape. And just this one here, if we make that soft, that should be good. I think that's looking nice. Yeah, that already looks really nice. I don't think we really need to adjust that at all at the moment. That looks okay. Great, so I think we've got a spline shape that's going to work for us, and now we can move on to the next step. I'll just set things up so that we can see what we're doing. We'll bring in a circle, make it 20 in the radius, select both the spline and the circle, hold down Command and Option, and drop these into a sweep. Straight away, we've got our first tube that our spheres can travel through. Now, we don't need caps, so we'll take those away. And we also need to change our spline's intermediate points from adaptive to uniform. That's quite an important step. Moving on from here, we can select the sweep, hold down Option, and drop this into a symmetry object. And now we've created both tubes. And they're going to work perfectly well for us, I think. They look really good. Yeah, okay. Looking really nice. One thing we will do is make some adjustments, because I'd like to bring this a bit closer and this a little bit further away, because we're going to be putting a cross piece in there. So we'll go into our spline. We'll just switch off the sweep for a minute. Go into our spline, go into points, which we are, well, we're actually in. Let's have a look, see where we are. We can turn off the symmetry, and we will move this away from the center. Let's go into our top view, so F2. If we move this down here so that we're about there, and we can bring this one a little bit closer, I think. Just take this to somewhere here. Let's just switch the symmetry back on. That's better. That's better. That's more even, and that's what I want to see there. I mean, again, we'll need to make some more tweaks in order to get this to work properly, but it's looking better, and we can then think about making our cross piece. So yeah, I think I'll go with that for now. To make the cross piece, I'll bring in a cylinder, orientate it plus X, make its radius 20 and its height for now 100. We'll adjust this afterwards. Drag a copy, so command drag to create a copy, and put it in plus Z for the orientation. Grab a hold of both of these and just move them into place. So I'm going to switch to my right hand view, hit H so that I can see everything. Just move this up so that it's somewhere between the two halves of our tube. Switch to my top view, so F2. And I'm going to rotate this by 45 degrees. Make sure our snapping is on. And just rotate that by 45. So it's now pretty much between our tubes, and we can do some adjustment on their shapes in order to get this in the right place. Now let's just switch again to our right hand view, and we'll just grab a hold of this and just rotate it to where it is now, and I think that'll work fine for us. Let's just check the front view, so F4, and yes, we can see that that's pretty much in the perfect place. So we've got our cross piece started. Now we need to command drag both of these cylinders to create two more, and these need to be 22 in their radius. We'll make these longer now. We'll go 105 so that they're just protruding, because to make this piece actually work we're going to be using volumes. I'm going to be using a volume builder and a volume mesher in order to create this piece. Now I think if I look at my top view, it could be left that size, but what I think we'll do is just make these slightly longer. If we just select these two, if we make them so that they're perhaps that sort of length, so they're just about touching our tubes, and we make these 120 in their heights, that should be just about spot on. I don't think we need to make it much bigger than that. So we can select both of these and connect objects and delete, so we'll just hit that there, and the same here, connect objects and delete. Switch back to model mode, and what we'll do now is drop these into a volume builder. So hold down Option and click on volume builder, drop those into there. Oops, not the way I want to do it. If I say command Option and drop them into a volume builder, that's done that. The voxel size is way too big, needs to be 0.5. And we do get these facets. I'm not too worried about that. If you want the facets to go, you'll have to make your cylinders, well, have more rotation segments before you make them editable, and that should smooth that out. But I'm not too worried. I'm just really about showing you the technique for building this, really. So we've got the volume builder. The next thing we can do is drop this into a volume mesher. So we'll hold down Option and select volume mesher. And that's done. Now in the volume mesher, I'm going to set the adaptive to 10% because I don't want too much detail. And in my volume builder, I don't want union, I want subtract. And now we've created the tube. We can see that that's hollowed out, and we can see right through that, which is exactly what we want. So that's great. That's doing what I need it to do. Again, if you want to mess about with the smoothing, you can do so if you wish to. You can play around with the smoothing in here. I'm not going to worry about it too much because I know that this will be good enough for what we need. But if you wish to do so, please feel free. The next thing to do is work with the spline again. So we'll select that. We'll take away the symmetry object. We need to go into points mode, and we need to think about what we're going to do. So let's just switch to our right hand view for a second and just see where we are here. Well, we're not far off where we need to be. We can just probably bring this down a very small amount so that it just lines up with the edges of that. If we just switch to garage shading lines, I think, and probably isopalms, yeah, we can see that that's lining up pretty well. And if we do the same here, let's have a look, see where we are with this one. Not quite as easy to see this particular one, but nonetheless, if we just get the rectangle selection tool, select this point, and we can just bring this up until it's about there. That looks as if it's good for the actual position that it's in on this side. Let's go into our top view and just see where we are. Well, it doesn't look too bad there. I think we need to make some adjustments with moving the points around. Let's just select that one again. We'll just bring that one closer. It doesn't have to be right inside it, just get it close. We'll take the snapping off actually, and then just bring that to somewhere around here. That should be perfectly good for us. And then with this point here, we can do the same, just bring it closer so that it's about there. We can see it's slightly off, but we can adjust that by moving this point. I think we just bring that one around there a little bit. And let's see where we are in our right hand view. So F3, not bad. We can just bring that up a little bit maybe. Let's have a look, see where we are. It's going to be this one. If we just bring this point, I think, up a little bit, just raise that until we get it just about there. Go into our 3D view and just make a check. Yeah, looking good. It's not looking too bad at all. We can probably still go a little bit higher, but we don't want to go too much. That's the thing. Just about there, I think, is good enough. Yeah, that looks okay. The only other adjustment we can make is to this point here. If we just raise that slightly, well, it's not making much of a difference, is it? So I'm going to leave that actually as it is. I don't think we can make much of a difference there. Yeah, I mean, I think, to be perfectly honest, that will work. I don't think we need to change anything there. That's looking very nice. Let's just bring the symmetry object back. And yeah, we can see that that's going to match up and it's going to work, I think, pretty well. Yeah, that looks as if it's going to be okay. So that's those two pieces working together now and looking quite nice. Moving on from here then, we can think about actually making the rails for our wireforms. So that will be our next step. Okay, in order to make the rails, what we need to do is copy this sweep. So we'll command drag to copy that down here. We'll make the dynamic tubes invisible for now and work with this. First thing to do, with the circle here, the number needs to be 2. We just set that down there because we want a low amount of facets. That's the important thing here for when we make this editor, which is what we're going to do next. So we'll hit C and select edge mode. We'll get rid of all these. We don't need any of them. Ultimately, we won't even need the sweep. Okay, so let's think about making our first rail. What we'll do is hit UL for loop selection, and we'll select this loop here, and we'll also select this here. So this will be our first rail. But before we actually make it, what we'll do next is, well, we're going to do all the rails actually. So we'll select this edge as well. I think we'll do this one. And let's have a look over here and see where we are. We'll select, I think, this, because I think that's its opposite number. That looks good. Moving on from here, we will select, where are we? Let's have a quick, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll select wireframe mode. Not wireframe mode, I beg your pardon. I'll leave it in isopalms. I want lines, so that's what I want to do. Now I can see where I am more easily, and what we want is this here. So we'll select that one, and we want the opposite number of it here. So let's see where we are. Where are we? We want, I think it's that one, isn't it? So we want the 2 of those. That looks really nice. And then finally, we want, if I can get a little bit closer here, we want the opposite number of the loop we used for the front, which is going to be this one we chose for the front one. So that's going round, where are we? That's going round to, if I can see it. I'm not sure where we've gone there. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. We've got 3 selected. We just want the last one, which is the one that's opposite this one, isn't it? Which is going to be this one, I think. Yeah, that's the last one that we need. So yeah, we've got all 4 now selected, and we should be okay. Let's just go back into Garage Shading Lines, and we should be able to see that more clearly. Yeah, so we can see that they're all selected accurately and they're all matching up. Yeah, that's fine. So the next thing to do then is to create a spline, and we'll just simply say in our mesh, edge to spline, and now we've created one spline that represents all of our rails, and we can just take that sweep away, and there we go, we've got it. Perfect. So moving on from here then, we can bring in another circle. Let's just bring one of those in. We'll make its radius 1. Select both the spline and the circle, Command, Option, drop them into a sweep, and we've created our rails. They're made. Now what we can do in the sweep spline here, we could make this in, well, it's in actually the angle is no good. Let's just undo that. Make it 5 as it was before. If we make this uniform and we make the number 120, we should get a smoother spline hopefully when we render. But that should be okay, and at the moment it's a linear spline. We actually need to make it a Bezier spline, and that will smooth it out. And there you go, it's much smoother, and now we've got something that really resembles a nice looking wireframe, which wouldn't look out of place in a pinball machine. So that's our rails. We'll just call that rails. The next thing we need, of course, though, are some tori, because they need to be placed around this in order to hold the thing together. They'd be welded onto it. So if we get a torus into the scene, so let's just bring one of those in, we can make it 20 in the ring radius, and it can be 1 in the pipe radius. We can leave the segments at 16 for what it is, it doesn't matter. You can make them 60 if you wish to. What we now need to do though is place these tori along this spline, so along the spline of our original sweep. So if we come into our tools and we say duplicate, we can then drag our spline into here. 10 copies I think will be fine. Let's just apply that, and it is fine. Now you've also got to remember that rotate needs to be checked, so enable rotation, that needs to be on. Align plus Y is fine. The positioning is already set up for you, but yes, you must enable rotation. Align plus Y will work perfectly good. It just aligns them tangentially, and that's all looking very, very nice. The only problem though is that we've got nothing along here. Now why is that? Well, it's one of Cinema 4D's idiosyncrasies. It worked fine when we were making the tubes. It placed them around both parts. It did that fine with the sweep, but it doesn't work quite so well here. So what we have to do is select this spline, Command drag a copy of it. In points mode, we can then select this half and delete it, so that we've got a new spline, and then all we need to do is Command drag our torus to make a copy. The original torus I'm just going to drop in to the torus copies here for now. So this torus we can then say duplicate once again, and this time we just need to put this spline in here and apply, and we've fixed it. That's how you do it. Okay, so torus 1, we've got copies here. What we'll actually do is select all of these, drop those into there, drop torus 1 into there, and remove that one. And we can just call this tori. Fantastic. So we've got our rails and we've got our tori. The next thing we need to do is create symmetry objects for these and just drop them in. So if we select both of them and then we hold down Option and drop them both into symmetry objects, we've now created 2 wireforms and everything looks great. Fantastic. So that's all looking very, very good. Before we get into the dynamics, let's just call these, or just call that tori for what it is, and that we can just bring that back to a null. Call this rails, and this again we can just take that away and bring it back to sweep. Okay, fantastic. So they're done. We've got the volume mesher, which is the cross piece. Just name those up, and then I'm going to select all of these, group them into a null, so Option G, and call them wireforms. Spell that correctly, just one R. Wireforms. Okay, brilliant. So we've got that, and we've got the dynamic tubes. Moving on from here, then we can think about creating all of the dynamics for this. So we'll take the timeline back to 0, and we're going to bring in a couple of spheres. We'll bring one in and we'll make it 18 in the radius. We'll bring another one in by command dragging to copy that. Close the pneumatic tubes and drop this down in here somewhere. So we've got our 2 spheres ready. They just need to be placed. So first thing to do is switch to our top view, hit H so that we can see everything, and move our first sphere somewhere over here, and our second somewhere over here. Switch to our front view, so F4, hit H. Thank you. And then we can move this up to here, and this one up to here. Switch back to our 3D view, so F1, and we can see that we're pretty well placed. We just move them down a little. Okay, so they're just about in the right places, and we can now think about making them dynamic. We'll start by looking at the rams. I think that would probably be the easiest thing to do. So both the left and right rams need bullet tags, and they need collider bodies. In our collision here, they need to be static meshes. So that's all set up. The bounce and the friction we need to change. I think the bounce we can make, say, 5%, and the friction we'll leave at, say, 90. As a starting point, we may need to change them, but it should be okay. Everything else I think we can leave the same. Just switch to model mode. Moving on from here, I suggest we do the spheres next. So we'll give those rigid body tags. Again, let's look at the collision. The shape we'll change from automatic to convex hull. We'll leave the size increment as it is. I think the friction we can take down to 30. We'll leave the bounce at 5. Now let's just do a quick test and see if this works. Certainly that does. And that does. And we can see that they've got quite a nice amount of energy. They've got plenty of energy. They went very, very high. That's what we need, and that's what we like to see. So those are working okay, and they're doing what we want them to. Moving on from here, we can think about working with our pneumatic tubes. Now we're just going to select the symmetry object for this. We're not going to go into it. We're just going to select this. Okay. I beg your pardon, not the pneumatic tubes, the dynamic tubes, beg your pardon. So the dynamic tubes are what we need to work with. We're not going to, as I say, go inside them at all. We're just going to simply give them a collider body. Again, it will be a static mesh. The bounce, let's give that 5%, and we'll set the friction at 90. Let's see if we get anything here. Let's see if we get anything at all. Let's have a look. What else do we need to do? Oh yes, before we go any further, we probably should do the cross piece as well, because that's dynamic. The actual tori and rails are not, but the cross piece definitely is. So we'll command drag the tag onto the cross piece and leave that there. Right, let's see what happens, if anything. There we go. And it rolls through and drops down. Yep. Well, we're getting the result that we wanted through the actual tubes and the crosspiece. That's all working fine. Now, of course, when the spheres actually reach the end of the wireform, they're actually falling off because there's nothing to stop them. So we need to build a couple of guards and put those in place, and that's what we're going to do next. But so far, everything is working pretty much as we want it to. I'll bring in a tube and drop this into left ram. In the object tab, we can make outer radius 26, inner radius 24, height 85, and everything else, well, height segments, we can make that 1, but everything else can be left the same. We can then zero out the X and Z coordinates and make the Y 132, and that places it in the right position. In the slice, we can make this 70 degrees and minus 120, so from 70 to minus 120, and that creates the correct shape. Command drag to copy this into the right ram, and once again zero out the X coordinate. We can leave everything else the same. We just need to change the slice from minus 250 to minus 50, and that creates both of the guards. These can then be given, we'll just drop them beneath the rams, but these can both be given the static mesh collider tags. So we've got that set up. Now let's see what we get now when we run the animation. Yep, and that looks very good. Seems to be working perfectly well. So that was a great test, and that's all set up for us. I'll colour both the spheres, I might as well do that. So select them, automatic. The first one can be red, and the second we'll make blue. Let's just drop these both down, and we've done that. So we've coloured the spheres. The next thing to worry about actually is going to be the drive sprockets animation. If we go into the dope sheet, so timeline dope sheet, and in the functions menu, track after, repeat after, and that will keep everything going, and then we can do a full test of the animation. So let's just do that, just run this. Okay, looking good. Yep, and the timing is pretty good so far. Yep, looking really nice. Yep, that's fine, and now it's repeated. Now you'll see occasionally that the rams will actually fire when there's no sphere there. I did try to come up with a method to stop that from happening, but I tried 2 separate ways and neither of them worked. So that's a bit of a challenge for you. If you don't want the thing to fire unless there's a sphere there, see if you can come up with an algorithm to actually stop that from happening. But it's a bit of a challenge. There must be a way, but as I say, I tried 2 different methods and it didn't work. But in the end, I just set it up with a timing that seemed okay for it and just left it at that. But there's a challenge for you if you want to take it on. If we just go back to my original model, we can see that I put pylons in. I'm not going to build them, but what I did, if we take a quick look at what we've got, what I've got is a symmetry object again, so I built just half of it. And what I've got is these 3 cylinders that I'm selecting here, they're in the symmetry object, and the center pylon I've taken out because obviously you don't want 2 center pylons because they'll just be occupying the same space, which is dead center of the crosspiece there. You don't want that. So that's the way to set that up if you do decide to build your pylons. But anyway, that was just something that was worth a quick discussion. So yeah, I mean, essentially that completes the tutorial and the series. That's how you go about building a Kinetic Sphere Exchanger. So as always, I really hope you've enjoyed this series of tutorials as much as I've enjoyed bringing them to you. And if you have enjoyed the video, then please give it a like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and of course ring the bell. And wherever you happen to be on social media, then please do share this video and indeed the other two that make up the series, because all this good stuff really does help keep the channel moving in the right direction. But anyway, that just about brings the curtain down on this one. So I'll see you very soon on the next tutorial.